Welcome to the tutorial of the DSL system basic tutorial. Before we start, we add here in our scene the asset package of our system. Simply import it. Now we have here two additional folders. One is called DSLSystem. Don't change anything inside here. How to change this or extend the system is explained later on, not in this tutorial. So keep it as it is. Now here in our menu we get a new entry, the DSL system. We have here editor scripts, a help system, about DSL compiler settings. Here you can set the compiler. It is set to strict build, which means all warnings are treated like errors. You should keep it with strict build, so some warnings he puts is about when the system wouldn't work any longer, gets interrupted, or some logical errors. So keep it that way so that you get no bytecode or no compiled version with not working bytecode. Here are the parameters, standard parameters for the command say. You can extend it, but we will explain this later on. Before we can start with the system, you can also read it in the help manual in basic setup. It is told that you have to add two tags to the system and your project, the DSL VM environment and NPC. We can do this here in tags, project settings, tags. We already added them. This is important that the system works. Now we have here our scene with our NPC, the constructor, our player, Eric Brighton, it's tagged player, and our basic scene like we are known it of Unity. So we can start with setting up the scene. Simply use setup scene, and this is done. We get added a new environment object with scripts tagged as DSL VM environment. Simply keep it as it is. Now we can also say set up player, so the player gets added the necessary scripts we need. And with the next step we can say create NPC. We get a wizard here, and in this wizard we have NPC game object. Here we take our game object, the constructor, drag and drop it into this field here, and then we can give it a new name. Let's call him Paul. Doesn't matter if the NPC name here is another one, doesn't matter. And then we can say also create DSL scripts, set create. Now we have called, this NPC is called Paul now, and here we have a script, DSL script named Paul. When we take a look at it, it has one entry, basic startup entry, and the entry is finish, that the interaction is finished now. Before we can start, we need an additional script that we have to create on our own. We will call it interaction star. Also name the script itself interaction starter. Now, before we can start, we need a new using directive called DSLSystem, so that we can use our system here. We can remove all the standard methods here, and we add the on mouse down, because we want that the interaction starts when the user presses the mouse button on our NPC. Then we need the component DSL VM, which is the basic command and basic class here in our system that will start and handle the interaction. We get it from our component here, directly from this game object with get component. And then we will use this component and call start DSLVM. This method also needs the game object of the caller so that it can send back response messages. One is LVM finished, and this one is called whenever we use the command finish in our scripts. Here we only say to log information to the console through action finished. Okay, now we can save this. And we can add it to our NPC here. Now when we test our scene right now, we can walk to our NPC, and when we click on him, we can find in here in our console interaction finished. So the interaction has started and finished directly. It's here in our script what we said here. Now we can add some logic here. We use say, and then we tell him something about himself. He will greet us and say, my name is Paul. We mark it here with the second part here that it is spoken by the NPC, and we can add another one where we respond to him and say, hello, and my name is Eric Wrighton, like we called our player here. And we say here player, so that we say, okay, this was spoken by the player. We hit save here now. It is compiled automatically, and when you test it right now, go to the NPC, and then we say, see here, he says, hello, my name is Paul, and we marked it so that we have here standing Paul, so that he talks. Now we see here Eric Brighton, and hello, my name is Eric Brighton. Now the interaction has finished again. This is the basic about interactions here. You can advance it with, for example, when you say, okay, I want that a user have, for example, some choice. We say here, go to diary entry, so that we can move on. Call it questions, create this entry questions, and for example we say here now we give choice to our player here. We start it with this construction ask with capital letter, also the brackets here, and then we add ask. Here we add what we will ask, what he can choose. For example, we say here, how are you? And we have to define where we define the code and the logic when the user asks us, how are you? Call it. The other one is ask, what do you do? What do you do? Now we have to add these two entries here. How are you? And what do you do? Now we can do anything here. Let's say we add here, he says I'm fine, and we say here go to diary entry and say questions, so that we get back to our choice where we started. Here we say I'm working on a construction. Also the NPC, and we say also go to diary entry question, so that we come back to our choice up here. Now when we hit save here and go back, we get an error here, which is normally a warning, but we have strict build, so it is treated as an error, and it says there is a non-executable ask block in this script. Check ask block in line 10. This error warning here means we have here an ask block here, and as you can see we have two parts here. One where we say okay, back to this, he says, goes back to our ask block. Here also we have only say and we go back, and as you can see there's no possibility for our player to get out of this construction anymore. He can't leave interaction anymore. We don't have inside here any comment with finish that will finish the interaction. This is what the warning shows you, and that the player won't get stuck in here. You get this warning. Now we add here another option called end. Add it here, and we say here finish and add entry 0. This entry 0 is used here to tell the system where to start at the next interaction, and we want to start the interaction where we did the first time. Now we no longer get any errors here, and now we can use our new program logic and test it here. We get the first dialog we know. He tells the name, we tell our name, and now we get here our choice here. We can check it out here. We can ask how are you? He says I'm fine, like we created it. What do you do? I'm working on a construction. And now when we hit end, the interaction is finished, like we can see here on our console output. This is all about the basic tutorial of the system. The basics of the system, how to treat it, how to create basic behavior for NPCs. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have a lot of fun with using this system.